my point is what we really managed to do in the G20. I agree with you that one shouldn't be textually obsessed, though text does matter.
Sure.
I think our real contribution was to get the G20 back to the G20's real business. The G20 is not the UN Security Council. It's not the primary forum to debate international peace and security. I'm not saying international peace and security doesn't matter or doesn't have economic consequences. They do. But if you look today at the world, there are issues for the world to worry about. Food and energy security, green financing, Agenda 2030, trade issues, debt issues. We actually got something very novel for G20 to look at, and which I would like to build on, which is something called global skills mapping. That where are the skills in the world and where is the demand in the world? And they are in two different geographies.
Yeah.
So how do we actually put that together? I think that's a very interesting avenue that we have opened up for the G20. So the original mandate of the G20 was global growth and development. Now last year, because of the Ukraine conflict, I think the conversations went in the direction of one issue. We would like to see, without disrespecting that particular issue, we would like to see a return to what we believe matters most to the roughly 200 countries of the world. And in that sense, I would say more than getting 22 out of 24. I would take satisfaction in the fact that the finance ministers meeting in Bengaluru and my meeting in Delhi, we were able to get the G20 back on track.
So you're confident that in September when the leaders meet, a bulk of the conversations will be around the issues that you just outlined?
I would say yes, that should be the progression. Every G20, there is a strong element of continuity. And there are some new ideas which come in. My sense is that you would see some ideas come in as well. Probably a bit early, may take a few meetings more for that to move. But I would certainly hope that by September, we would have a G20 leaders meeting which would look at the crucial issues pertaining to global growth and global development.
Sure. So one of the consequences, I guess, because of the war, perhaps it's been accentuated because of the war, is the world is increasingly looking like two blocks. You have the United States and its partners on the one side, and you have Russia and China on the other, most of all because of what happened last week when Xi Jinping went to Moscow. What do you make of that? And how, again, I come back to this, how does a country like India play that? Because we are in neither camp.
I think you are oversimplifying this, deliberately so, I understand.
Journalist occupational hazard.
Yes, absolutely, I get that. I'll tell you why you're oversimplifying it. It's not, Russia and China versus the West in that simplistic a term. After all, the primary partner, economic partner of China is the West, and the primary economic partner of the West is China. So they have an enormous amount of economic interface there. Where Russia is concerned, I would actually go back to my initial point, which is, I think, one of the natural consequences of the Ukraine conflict is that Russia, a Eurasian power which has historically looked much more towards Europe, today finds its relationships with the West very, very difficult. So that Russia is inclined in many ways, therefore, to turn much more to the Asian side of Russia.
Yeah.
So I would predict fairly safely, and I think the numbers this year already bear me out, that you will see an intensification in Russia's relationship with Asia as a whole. Now, you spoke about Russia, China, But I would suggest to you that many other countries in Asia, maybe not economically all of the same size, but there are some fairly consequential economies. We would number one of them. And my expectation is you will see actually Russia also show that much more interest in developing its cooperation with India. Now, if you look at the India-Russia relationship, for the last 70 years, this has been one of the most steady relationships in international relations. That, take all the major players, Russia, China, Russia, West China, you've seen enormous volatility in their relationship. Whereas from 1955, which was the year Bulganin and Khrushchev came to India, you've actually had a very, very steady, even after the breakup of the Soviet Union, actually, there was a bit of a gap there, but very quickly the relationship came back to where it was. So I do think that, yes, you will see a change in Russia's posture and priorities, but I think for India, this is also in many ways an opportunity to grow its relationship, because our relationship with Russia has been very, the bandwidth is very narrow. It has been mainly defense, nuclear and space. The trade relationship with Russia historically has been not historically, at least in the last 2-3 decades, has been very, very narrow. And you can see that grow.
So, but when now, particularly when European countries say that, before the start of the war, Russia was supplying India less than 1% of your oil requirements, suddenly Russia is your top oil supplier, what do you say to that?
I'd say the market is the market. We all believe in markets, right?
Of course. So let's talk a little bit about domestic politics as well, because as you said some time back, there's a lot of interest outside about domestic politics, and of course in India also there's a lot of interest about what's happening around the world. Your parliamentary colleague, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the Congress party, he made some comments while he was abroad. There was a backlash to those comments. Your party basically wanted him to apologize, and then subsequently now there's a court conviction and he's been disqualified. I want to know your...
Sorry,